Good evening. This is the work session for Northfield City Council, November 9th of 2021. This meeting was properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, in the Press of Atlantic City on January 9th of this year. As you know, in late May, Governor Murphy issued Executive Order 242 related to COVID-19 and which eased restrictions on face coverings in indoor public spaces under certain conditions. The order permits employers to impose stricter requirements regarding face coverings in indoor settings, which in the best interests of our employees and visitors, the City of Northfield opted to do in May and continues to do today. Based on CDC guidelines, the city continues to require face coverings and social distancing in our indoor public spaces, and visitors are made aware of this decision with signs at the entrances to the building. Due to these requirements, there are limited seats for in-person attendance by members of the public this evening. This meeting is also being presented simultaneously as a remote public meeting live streamed using Zoom conferencing service and in accordance with the governor's executive orders and the Open Public Meetings Act. Zoom meeting participants can dial in by telephone and listen to the proceedings, or they can access the meeting using a web browser and be able to view and listen. Instructions on how members of the public could reserve one of the limited seats, as well as how they can access Zoom, have been made available on the municipal website and were published in the Press of Atlantic City. The full text of the public meeting notice has been posted at the entrance to the municipal building and includes Zoom instructions, information on where to find the meeting agenda and relevant documents, as well as instructions on how members of the public could submit comments in advance of today's meeting. For those participating via Zoom, all participants will be muted upon entry to the meeting. Web browser participants will not be able to share their screens or see the camera view of anyone other than the host, which is the City of Northfield. Zoom participants wishing to exercise their right to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting should wait until the specific announcement is made to open the public comment period. At this time, one by one, any telephone users will be asked to identify themselves and will be unmuted to permit commentary. For web browser participants, comments or questions may be submitted via the chat function, but will not be acknowledged outside of the designated public comment portion of the meeting. Chat users must also provide his or her name and address for the record in order to be heard. And any written comments submitted in advance would be read aloud and addressed during the public comment portion of the meeting, and for today, there were none. May I have a flag salute led by Mayor Chow, please?
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Roll call. Mr. Deweese?
Here.
Mrs. Madden? Here. Mr. Notaro?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Utz?
Here.
Mr. Palestina?
Here.
Mr. Chow?
Here.
Mr. President?
Thank you. Okay, let's see, we'll move on to committee reports. Councilman Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. First and foremost, I'd like to congratulate the Republican candidates for a very strong showing, and the machine count wins were strong, and my congratulations, and look for the best of the future, and it's a good job, and I'd like to thank Barbara for her time, and Mr. Smith, Ms. Bucci, Greg, good luck to you in the future. That's all I have right now, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Utz.
Thank you, Council President. First, I'd like to say that I was speaking with a resident the other day. I was at the American Legion giving blood, and he said that he loves the fact that we do Zoom meetings, but he can't hear us because of the masks, and he can't tell who's talking because we don't lower them. So we just request that while someone's speaking, would it be acceptable to just lower the mask while we speak and then put it back up when we're complete? This way they can tell who's speaking. This was his complaint. But other than that, he loves the fact that he can now participate or watch council on Zoom. As far as committee reports, the planning board had a very long meeting the other day. We had two what are called D variances, which the mayor and I are not allowed to vote on, but it went before. So the one presentation was where Beacon is now, Beacon Bicycles. They're looking to put an auto collision shop. And although this is not typically a permitted use, they went to great lengths to tell us about how today's auto body shop is not the same as yesterday's, that they use low VOC paints, that they capture any kind of leakage. Everything takes place indoors. They will have a storage lot behind there with a 6-foot fence where they'll store the hold the cars until they're ready to be worked on, and they pledge to get them in and out as quickly as possible. The only person that stood up that was opposed to it was someone from the Gerwitz organization who said this might impact on Crescent Hill, that they may look down on that building, but nonetheless, the zoning board did give them approval. The other one was a much-anticipated presentation from the Veterans Administration. We had several veterans here at the meeting. They also needed a D variance, but for a very small difference for the size of the lot to the floor area, which is it's a 30,000 square foot building. They had many other C variances that they needed on signage and curbing and setbacks, et cetera. But it was pretty well, most of the specs for the building are pre-planned by the Veterans Administration. The builder of the building really doesn't have any leeway. They have to build to a certain specification. Several veterans spoke in behalf of the need for a larger Veterans Administration medical center here. The one we have now is about a third the size as the one that will be built. They had half the parking that's required, but they say a lot of the veterans arrive by bus. It is on a bus route, plus the Veterans Administration itself provides busing. So this is, according to the veterans, something that was much needed. One resident did get up and speak of the residents on Jenny Lynn. There was an incident there a little while back where someone wandered from the Veterans Administration onto the church lot there, and, well, if you know the story, it was quite disturbing. And they want to make sure that there's security so that, fencing, so that the veterans can't, you know, someone who's being there for mental health issues can't just wander onto their property. But they seem to feel good with the 25-foot woods that will separate the two properties and all the things that the person who's building the veteran and will rent this to the Veterans Administration promised. So it also was approved. It was a long meeting. We heard from everything from generals to citizens in favor of the need for a new Veterans Administration medical building. So it was approved. And other than that, you can see on tonight's agenda that we have an electrical inspector, and we're getting another Class 2 officer to help with the code enforcement. So our business administrator has been busily filling in those various slots at a cost we can live with. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Notaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to thank Councilman Perry for his many, many years of service to the city. I worked with Frank, 15 years ago, and I worked with him the past couple of years, or the past year, and it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for 30 years of service, I believe?
28.
28, well, not the same, right? 30, 28. Barbara, thank you very much for your service as well. And congratulations to the Republican candidates, Greg, Deweese, Brian Smith, and Carolyn Bucci. From Emergency Services, the EMS report for October, we had 164 calls for EMS service with a response time of 5.8 minutes. Northfield called for mutual aid only 16 times. Northfield responded to calls for mutual aid 76 times with an average response time of 7.7 minutes. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Deweese.
Thank you. The buildings and grounds, we're working on getting prices to replace the exterior public entrance to the police station on the side of the building. We're seeking quotes for that right now, as well as we're getting quotes to paint the museum at Birch Grove Park. It's, the building is in need of some repairs, and certainly with the painting is going to come some exterior patches as well, so we get a professional to do that. The irrigation is scheduled to be turned off most likely by the end of this month for all the fields and City Hall as well. The bathroom at the Tan Snack Bar will be closed and winterized very soon as well. Football will wait until after the season is done sometime, whenever that gets done, probably by the end of the month, early December, I would think. The other thing is, no, that's it. I'll wait for new business to address this other issue. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. As far as my committee reports, the one item I have is I wanted to share that the Northfield Community School has opened up a program in conjunction with Linwood Schools for vaccination of those that the CDC has approved vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds. And there is a joint program between Northfield and Linwood where they're accepting appointments for Northfield children of that age group to go to Linwood, and I think it was Rover Labs, I think, was the organization that was administering them. But, it's good to see that the Northfield and Linwood schools are cooperating with this. As far as the elections go, I wanted to thank everyone involved, all the candidates, for stepping up and volunteering. It's often a thankless job. This year was the most stress-free for me as far as an election goes, and I certainly appreciated that. But I think just the individuals who step up and serve and devote their time to this are to be commended one way or the other, and I thank both the parties and the campaigns for keeping it above board this year. It was very respected, and I certainly appreciate that, and thank everyone who devoted their time to that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Madden.
I have nothing new, committee reports, nothing to report on the committee. However, I would like to, congratulate the candidates, especially Carolyn Beach. I'd like to congratulate you on your win, and good luck to you. I'll be watching all of you. And, I wish you a successful, term. Also, I did want to bring up, Mr. Mayor, I'll ask you if it's something I should bring up, or Mr. Carlson, if something I should bring up on the topics for discussion or at this time. We did receive a letter, email from Mr. Joe and Mr. Zhu regarding the vehicle. So should I discuss that, has the talking point, or discuss it now, or wait until we discuss topics for discussion?
Yeah, we can do that at the new business.
Any business?
Yes.
I will go ahead and have it for now, for my report.
I'll make a note of it. Okay. Thank you. Let's see, so, I also would like to thank all the participants in the election, again, as Councilman Smith said, for stepping up. And I, of course, like to thank those that went for school board as well. Another job that's quite time-consuming and quite important. For my committees, one of the things that falls under Finance Committee is the annual best practices inventory. So Northfield, what happens is we do a self-evaluation. It's required by the Division of Government Services, and we assess areas in personnel, budgets, capital, procurement, transparency, shared services, the environment. There's some other unscored areas that are not applicable. One of them is the American Rescue Plan this year, tax collection, grace periods, UEZ zones, economic development, and recreation. But all that being said, Northfield's score was 22.5, and what that means is if a town scores under 15, then you start losing the state aid. So we scored 22.5 out of probably a 22 or 20, 23 or 20, 23 is it? Out of 23. So we're adhering to, again, those best practices, and I applaud everyone involved, our city clerk, business administrator, and our CFO, all of the other departments, grounds, police, fire. It covers many areas. And I believe everybody on council received a copy of the long report. I have, and Municipal Alliance will be meeting this week, and we have some new people on the board that the council approved a few meetings ago. So I'll have more to report at our next meeting. And that's all I have from my committee report. We'll move on to work session. The previously new business. On the Zion Road Pump Station, do we have any updates?
We do. I anticipate getting a letter from Robin indicating that we'll be on the agenda for December 2nd. We have received the 200-foot list. We're in the process of putting together the public notices. I just need the official word from Robin, which I anticipate I'll get this week. I think unofficially, we've had that we'll be on the December 2nd agenda.
Okay. Northfield at Route 9 drainage.
Can I bring this in the business? I just had a Zoom meeting this afternoon. I'd like to update the council on the discussion
Okay,
with the state DOT.
at new business, okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We have no update on that lease agreement. The sump pumps, I believe we're still pending on that.
Yes, I have something for the next meeting.
Thank you. The stormwater share facilities with Atlantic County,
I haven't received any documents from the county. I'm still waiting.
okay. Any fire truck updates?
Nothing other than waiting on bid specifications from the chief.
Okay. The Block 66, Lot 11, the potential public auction. We did get something back from Habitat, so, actually, I don't have that with me, I'm sorry.
They're very interested,
They're
basically.
very interested?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
So we would need to, at some point, involve the COA attorney. And then, Chris, I sent the agreement, their draft template agreement. Did you have a chance to look at?
I have not looked
Okay.
at that. I can have that ready for next meeting.
okay. All right, we'll put that on the next agenda to discuss how to move forward with that. That had a potential of, was it three lots?
I think that might be 4. I don't know
4.
off the top of my head,
Okay.
sorry.
Yes, so multiple lots that would go toward our COA requirements. The next topic is we sent out some, included with the agenda was some suggestions for easing up on the signage and making it a little more business friendly, as we knew. I did ask that for feedback, and actually there was none. So we went by what the typical complaints were, what the typical infractions were, and tried to see if it was too restrictive. And what we'd like to do is discuss those tonight and forward something to the planning board for their review to make sure that that we make sense with how we want to proceed in Northfield with our business signage. Barbara, did you have, Councilwoman Madden?
I'll bring it up later. There's just one thing I didn't know if it was crossed out, and I had a question about it. So I can,
Yeah, sure. Yep, this would,
may I?
yeah, absolutely. You have the floor.
The prohibited signs, one of the things, it looks like, using any mode of blinking, it looks like blinking is crossed off. Does that mean you want to allow blinking signs?
Yes, what we talked about, just the open signs, actually. We want to amend that to, some businesses on their window that'll be facing
There would be no
facing out.
traffic. It would be
And nothing blinking that would be
distract others.
perpendicular to the flow of traffic.
Oh, okay.
So that when you're driving toward it, it wouldn't be blinking at you. It would only be on the face of the building, on the face of the store, on the face of the business, saying, they're open.
Oh, okay.
And again, we want to certainly not have it, like Las Vegas. We don't want Las Vegas blinking lights either. Yeah, that we're not suggesting that. Again, looking at,
Thank you for clarifying that.
that's, again, this is why we wanted to bring it up.
Is
The-
there any size attached to the lights or the signs that we're talking about?
It would still fall within all the current restrictions. So I think it's 25% of the
Gotcha, okay.
window. We didn't propose anything changing it in that manner. So the first one being the sail sign, the sail as in a ship sail type of sign, the ones that just have that one long tube I would say we should limit it to 8 feet. And what we, as we discussed it, we thought maybe 1 per 100 feet of a business area. So even if it were a retail area where it's multiple stores, if there's 5 stores within 100 feet, one person gets a sign, and then you, as business neighbors, they can figure it out. We're not, we don't want to have one sign for every business, because that would be opposite of what we're trying to achieve here. Then it would be, I think then it would get to be too much. At least that would be, I mean, again, this is my suggestions. Any feedback, if anybody agrees or disagrees, please, let's discuss.
My question, Council President, would be on the banner signs, and I'm all for, you know, letting them have 1 per 100 square feet, linear feet. I think that's fine, but do you want them up all the time? Don't they sort of lose their effectiveness if people leave them up day after day, year after year? I mean, wouldn't it be better to give them, I mean, the old ordinance gave them a 30-day limit on something like a grand opening. You're increasing that to 90 days, which I think is a great idea. But maybe we should limit the banner signs to, you know, 90 on and some time period off, so
Well,
that,
some of
so
them
that
are
our
just
city
open,
doesn't become
yeah.
all banner flags.
Yeah, some of them were just open signs that they put out. Again,
Uh-huh. Oh, I'm sure zoning will give you some feedback on that.
if anybody else on council has any feedback, I'd appreciate that. I'd like to present something to them that makes sense.
Do we see it as a problem, potential problem, that if you have 5 stores in 100 feet, that you're saying they can work it out? What happens if they can't work it out?
Then the signs come down. Then they're under the same constraints. Then we would have to issue a violation that you have too many signs. Yeah, I mean, it would have that potential, so, we may be,
So what if, this is hypothetically speaking, what
Yeah,
if
that could
one
be a
store in a row has their blade sign up for a year, and the other store owners are angry because this one store had first shot at it, and they're keeping it up, and they don't cooperate?
I guess we would be creating it.
Is there a mechanism in place where maybe it can rotate, like it can be up for, and Councilman Utz kind of suggested maybe if there's competition for said spot, maybe it's a rotating.
Well, and how about, in light of what, as you're both saying, Councilman Lutz, so if we limit it to, other than a grand opening, or we could do 90 days per, and that's it. So then,
I can, you know, I have
you get
one,
90 days for a grand opening, or for any particular
where
time.
hiring is very popular these days.
So you get 90 days, and then at that point, the other businesses have their turn.
That may be difficult to enforce.
Yes,
The grand
it may.
opening, we know because it's when they got their zoning approval or they got their mercantile license. Adding a permit process for signs is just another layer that's
Hard to do.
cumbersome and difficult to enforce. My thought with what you're suggesting is if it's tenancy, that they take it up with their landlord.
For the competition, yeah, that wouldn't fall on us. That should be between the land, you know, the lease, whoever handles their leasing.
The only other thing I would point
Yeah, I
out,
don't want to create fights with people.
in the paragraph that says, I don't have a problem with the signs, it's not, I'm just pointing
I
out
understand,
potential.
no, it's a good point.
The, in the paragraph that says signs permitted without a paragraph, where Councilman Nuts mentioned the 30-day switch to 90 days, about 2 sentences
Yes,
below, it needs to be changed to 90 days
We
as well.
fixed that already. It
Yeah.
was just after the agenda
Okay.
went out. Sorry about that.
No problem, just wanted to point it out.
Greg pointed that out, right, Greg?
Yes, I think I did.
and,
Mr. President,
yes.
well, number 3, with the blinking signs are permitted, do you really see a need for blinking signs?
As we were saying, just, I think we wanted to, in discussing it, it would probably make sense if it's an open sign, but not just any blinking sign, since we don't want to, again, create more distraction, but just some of those just open signs that say, yeah,
Right.
that'll go off and on, just to capture a little bit of people's attention when they're in the parking lots.
Because blinking signs be blending into some of the
Well, it's only gonna be on the commercial, let's see, so it would be, it does include the country club signage, but the area as far as what's under that paragraph. We'll have to look at that. Because there's gonna be some, there may be some that would be in a
It should
residential
really just be
commercial.
fixed, really. You know, blinking and stuff like that, I don't know, it starts to get tacky, you know, to me.
So if they're gonna do, so an open sign should just be either just on, no blinking. Okay. All right, we'll leave that one out. And the next paragraph just talks about the blinking again. And then number 215, 113G, 12. That's where we talked about the banners, the flags and banner signs, since they're addressed in another section. And then sandwich sign types, that's coming out because it's in another section of the code. That's all, in going through it. The next section, section 21, being the 90 days, that's just increasing it from 30 to 90 days. Is there anyone that would like to change that or put up a different time frame?
I think that depends on what you do with the 100-feet sign, right, the 100-foot, with these businesses, that if you have,
It sounds like
Five
that's,
you know,
yeah, it
if
seems
you're
as
gonna
though,
rotate,
seems as though that one's gonna create more of a problem.
it's gonna create more of a problem.
So we should probably take
Either-
that, we should, I guess we'll have to take that one out.
Or
And
allow,
just- and just
or allow each business to put the sign up for 90 days.
But we can't control the time frame.
Only if it's grand opening.
Yeah.
We can monitor that.
We know when it's grand opening, we won't know all the other times, so from a enforcement standpoint, we're just gonna create more problem than good. So really, all we're doing is grand opening, extending it to 90 instead of 30. The last section, 215, 113L, that specifically is the signs on facades. And I believe what happens is, this will just give a little more leeway, including part of the building set. So, for example, if a building has a front wall, it would include that as part of the calculation, and not just their top facade, not just the top going across. So they give them the ability to put a little more advertisement up there. That is all I have. Does anybody have any other suggestions?
When you say building facade in 113L,
Yes.
the front facade?
Yeah,
I don't know what definition of facade is.
it is defined elsewhere in the code. It would exclude the windows, so it would just be,
But it's only
yeah,
the front of the building, not sides and.
yes, just the front.
The way it reads now, the calculation for signage is only based on horizontal width. It doesn't take into account the height of the vacant sign area.
Yeah.
So it's a half of a foot per linear foot of width. That's the way it is now.
So if you have a 100-foot building, you have a 50-foot sign.
No, it's a half of a square foot, is it in here?
Half of a square foot
Yeah,
for
it's
each
actually,
1 foot of width.
So it's 50 square feet.
Yeah. And it wouldn't take into account the height of that, the height of that facade. Any other ideas? All right, so then what we'll do is we'll put that, we'll put these suggestions together and ask for input from the planning board and move on from there. Thank you. Next item is some of the items we would need to add to the ordinance for the cannabis. Councilman Nutt, would you like to take the lead there?
Sure. Tom and I discussed this during the week and came to a general agreement on what we thought would be suitable for Northfield if we were to allow cannabis retail to come to our business. We've dropped cultivation altogether, and although there can be a separate license for delivery, we're currently recommending that in order to encourage storefront rental, that delivery be limited to those that have a retail license and an actual storefront in the regional commercial zone, so that you couldn't have a household delivering cannabis or setting up as a cannabis business. We can always revisit that down the road, but I thought that part of the purpose of this is to spur economic development, and by, if somebody wants a retail delivery business, they also need to set up a retail operation in one of the storefronts in the commercial zone. Licensing fees, we talked about, so as not to burden, because many of these are going to be small businesses entering this business for the first time, a $500 non-refundable application fee. So you can apply for the license, and that way you can go ahead with the Cannabis Regulatory Commission and try to get licensing there. And if you're approved, then you would add another $2,000 to that to make the actual registration and licensing application fee $2,500. But the $500 is not refundable, so you can apply for the license. You may or may not get it because there's only going to be 3 allowed. And an annual renewal fee of $2,500 also for the retail license. You were all given this in your email. If they want to do delivery, they need to add an extra $1,000 to that registration fee. So you can, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission allows for multiple licensing. And so if you have a retail business and you want to add delivery, because there are more things to look at in a business that offers delivery, so there'll be additional administrative needs and possibly enforcement needs. So that justifies the extra $1,000 for a delivery license. The hours of operation will reflect that of a liquor store. So currently 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., the same as a liquor store, Monday through 7 days a week. And we're hoping to craft an ordinance and get an ordinance in front of you all for the next meeting. But we wanted to have general consensus before we took the cost, time, and of drafting such an ordinance. So we'd like input from current council on if they think that this fits Northfield's idea of retail cannabis.
Yes.
As far as, let me make sure I get this straight. You want to have 3 retail licenses, and they're stores, and only those stores can deliver. You're not going to allow just the delivery service. But
Correct. They can add delivery to their license.
okay, but delivery can occur from outside the
Yes.
Blank Harbor, Pleasantville.
That's also true, and I have no doubt that some companies will specialize purely in delivery, that will be their marketing thrust, and
And then my next question is, are we maybe limiting retail businesses a little too much if we're not allowing delivery? Should we maybe allow, because we know there's no guarantee we're going to get the number we asked for, but should we maybe allow more than 3 businesses with delivery if we're not going to have just delivery?
well, Councilwoman Menden, it's true that, I was originally in favor of more retail locations, but this is a new business in Northfield. It's a new business in New Jersey. So I think that, and people are afraid of it and anxious about this coming to Northfield. A resident asked me the other day, are we gonna, is this money that we gain from the 2% tax, are we gonna have to hire more police officers? Well, my answer to that was, did we need to hire more police officers when bootleggers opened? No, and I think that'll be the same with cannabis. It will be, once the initial hoopla is over with, it'll be just another retail store. And at that time, when some of the anxiety and residents start to see that the revenue that's generated is helping our town, and it's not creating issues that are problems, then we could go ahead and expand licensing, including delivery and perhaps even, that's right, or even a micro, right, if the market's there and if it turns out to be not as problematic as some people anticipate.
Whatever the market will handle.
Yeah.
It can be addressed at a future date with whoever's on council at that time.
Mhm.
The other thing about the delivery, any of us can always do, with delivery, right now with us, currently, we prohibit cannabis in Northfield. However, we cannot prohibit that. So right now, it can be delivered into Northfield if that were in place already.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and
The other thing,
yeah, and also, again, it is also specifically designed, the delivery option for a retail business, to support the retail businesses that decide to locate in Northfield, to give them a little edge up, a little extra help in developing a business that, quite frankly, is new to everybody.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
the other thing that's not included in just these topics that we have here is the actual tax, which is a given. We're going to be at the 2% tax that is, that's going to be included. I just make sure everybody knows we're not leaving that out. These are the items that we needed to have council's input to draft an ordinance.
Paul, can you clarify the zoning, the area of which these,
So it's right about where Dunkin' Donuts is, whatever that street is, down to the end of Tilton Road where Egg Harbor Township starts. So that's the zone. I don't know what real estate is available before Crescent Avenue occurs. I mean, there is that strip mall right by Crescent Avenue that I think is a viable location. But there's certainly plenty of storefronts further on down that will, that are available.
okay.
That's Deborah Street.
Yes.
What's that?
Deborah.
Yeah,
And so there's no change in the zone we previously identified?
No.
right?
that's correct.
No.
I just wanted to clarify the area.
Yes.
Mr. President, if it doesn't have 5 votes, then I think it's null and void. I wouldn't want to spend the money to craft the ordinance if we don't have 5 votes, because the mayor could veto it, and you're gonna need 5 votes to turn it over, so, looking at it from, different angles, if you don't have 5 affirmative votes, then why move forward?
So I think he's suggesting a straw poll based on the parameters that we've outlined.
Oh, fine. That's,
I would propose 2.
2 units? To me, then that becomes like Coke and Pepsi. You could get collusion between the two. You don't get the same competition you get with 3, which is, a little more triangulated.
But we have 2 liquor stores.
Pardon?
Is it the same in the liquor store?
We have 3
We have
liquor
3.
licenses, 3
Right.
liquor licenses.
We have 3 liquor licenses, but
Yes.
we have, as far as packaged goods sales, there's 2. Am I correct with it?
No, the Venturas has one,
And,
and Bootleggers has one, and then there's the Country Club. There's 3 liquor
but
licenses.
they don't have packaged goods, is what I'm
No,
saying.
but
You don't go to the country club for packaged goods. I'm treating it like a packaged good.
Right.
So why would we even need 3? I mean, does it make sense to have 3 of these dispensaries?
Personally, I think it makes for a little better competition.
Okay.
Because, in the last couple of months, I've heard from, a lot of my constituents in the second ward, and I've only found one person that's in favor of it. So, something that, we need to pay attention to.
I'll come up with different numbers.
What's that?
I'll come up with different numbers than that.
Oh, well,
I've heard it from both angles. I really have, and this is not an easy decision for me either, because from an economic standpoint, I mean, this could increase traffic flow on Tilton Road, which could ultimately increase business on Tilton Road. It could increase national chains on Tilton Road. There's a lot of things that it could. We don't know what's going to happen down the road. You know, if we do this, it could help, and it could hinder too. So it's a real tough decision, you know. And you know, from an economic standpoint, I think it's, you know, listen, if it was in Heathercroft Square, or if it was in Kensington Square, the only difference is we don't get the revenue from it. I mean, but it's the same thing. Essentially, it's the same area.
So, Councilman Notaro, so you're right, it's gonna happen.
It's going to happen
Somebody's
regardless,
gonna,
with or without us.
somebody's gonna reap the revenue from these
It's
sales.
going to happen with or without us.
That's number one. And as far as the drawbacks go, I mean, you know, if you ask a high school student, which is easier to get, liquor or cannabis, most will tell you they can find cannabis. What they can't tell you is where that cannabis came from, whether it was treated with pesticides or has been laced with some other adulterant. And, you know, they're out there using this stuff that has no paper trail of what adulterants might be in it. So, and that goes for the adult use population. I mean, you know, we had prohibition with alcohol, but how often can you find a bottle of moonshine now? Not so much, because we have legal liquor. And I think, although the underground market will continue to thrive for a time, because those networks are already established, eventually it won't be as profitable for them. And these adulterated products that do find our children will start to dwindle and cease, because there is a legal option for adults to get cannabis, and a place where they check ID and they test the product. And so I think that overall legal cannabis is a benefit to you know, the state, not a drawback. Cannabis is already here, and legal cannabis is going to be here. So I think you know, that we may as well help our regional commercial district and help provide a safe product to those that use cannabis, and get some revenue along the way.
Yeah, I think, Mr. McCarty, the only thing that we will stop is taxpayer relief, jobs, and economic growth and advancement, because it's gonna be all around us, so it will come to us one way or the other. And this way, we do have some control over it, and it could lead to, like you say, more business, certain businesses coming in, chains and whatever. It has a lot of positive benefits, and I really, when you think about anything negative, it's going to be here. And the only thing we would lose out on is, like I say, economic benefits, cheap fire truck, things like that.
Well, I don't think it's going to buy a fire truck, but, you know,
No,
it's
but-
definitely.
Bonded over 20 years it might.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll see. We don't know. You know, who knows? Who knows what it's going to do, you know? But, you know, it's all so new, and, you know, we have to make a decision.
Part of the Cannabis Regulatory Commission for these small businesses also is that they hire within the town or a bordering town. So it will provide jobs.
It has a lot of benefits.
I think you'll find it's not as scary once it's here.
No, I don't think so.
You're not supposed to have.
Yeah.
Straw poll.
Councilman,
Straw poll.
yes, Councilman Perry.
To move forward with the ordinance,
To move forward, did you get the ordinance drafted? Yes.
I have some reservation there. If it's gonna cost us a lot of money and it's not gonna move forward, you know, that's my problem.
Yep.
You know,
You know,
you have,
I think we're talking.
you have a different administration coming in the first of the year.
Well, this would be before that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you're talking a month and a half, so. To me, we beat it to death, and, you know, what the majority of the town wants. We don't have the majority here tonight to defend it on you know, an appeal by the mayor, so, you know, technically, I'm for it as economic, you know, growth for the community, just like I was for cell towers. It never happened, and, you know, I'm a business person. I look at the way, you know, government makes money, and, you know, it's the business of government, and they're legalizing it. You know, to me, I'm a yes, but, you know, I don't want to see it go through thousands of dollars worth of legal fees and, you know, boom, and, you know, it doesn't move. It's ridiculous to the community to spend that money, and, you know, to me, it's going to happen locally, and you know, our residents are still going to be served, but, you know.
Clarify the straw poll that.
Yeah.
As far as passing, that we're.
As far as intent to go forward with it, we want to get it drafted so that we can vote on it.
I mean,
Councilman Deweese.
And can I just ask a
Yes,
question? Is the straw poll on the 2 licenses or 3 licenses? I just want to make sure everybody's
On the
three-
parameters
on-
set
all
forth
on
here.
the same thing.
On what we have presented, 3 licenses with the fees as they are, and the annual renewals and hours of operation.
So the straw poll is to proceed with the approval of the cannabis ordinance, is that how?
To proceed with having that draft.
Do you want to explain the timeline, introduction on the 23rd, and then final on the 15th?
To have an
so
ordinance
they
on the
Yeah.
understand?
agenda next
Yeah,
week.
what this
Barbara,
is,
it's for-
so
it's
the
for the
reason,
next
the
meeting.
reason we want to do that is to, again, as Councilman Perry mentioned, is to not waste any more time and not to waste any more money to draft an ordinance if it has no chance of passing. And as he brought up tonight, even with a 4-3 vote, it could suffer veto if the mayor chooses. That being said, what we want to do now is vote whether we want to move forward to spend that money, to get that drafted, and then that would give the first reading at the next meeting, at the end of November, and the first meeting in December would give us the opportunity for a final vote and passage. If, again, people's minds may change, but the intent is the intent. We can't,
So-
I don't have a crystal
If
ball.
you get 4 votes tonight, Barbara, you may not want to proceed. I don't know.
As it stands now, so that's what we want to do now, is to see whether we will proceed or let it end tonight.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, Councilman Deweese.
No.
yes.
Councilman Madden.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
And I vote yes to proceed as well.
So there's,
So
better.
we'll move forward. We'll draft the ordinance, and it'll be up for public meeting at the next 2 meetings. And I will, Councilman Utz and I will make sure we have all the other items together for you in the near term so that you have time
That's fine, and
to
just
take care of that.
procedurally, I have to determine whether it's gonna be a new ordinance or just amending old 7. I think
Amending.
time-wise, or time frame-wise, it doesn't make a difference which way we go. It may be cheaper to amend 7 as opposed to republish an entire ordinance,
Okay,
starting from scratch.
thank you.
So then would the final reading be at the next meeting?
The time frame doesn't change.
Okay, gotcha.
7's going to have
December.
significant changes to it because it was missing these items as well as the taxes. Moving forward to new business. The grants, is there any new grant opportunities that that we should be looking at for the end of the year? No? Professional services, could you refresh my memory on that one?
So the City of Northfield traditionally does advertise for our professional service appointments, even though under the law we are not required to do so. So what I sent everyone is the criteria that was used for last year in selecting the professionals, and you were asked to review it and let me know if there's anything you would like to change before we publish the advertisement.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I missed that as well. So we will have feedback and so that we can have it for the next meeting?
No, I need to know tonight.
Okay.
Does anybody want to change, for example, the number of years of experience that we look for in a certain professional? That's typically what you would look at.
We changed that not too long ago, didn't we, to reflect at the current administration's request?
The last changes we made were in 2012, and we reduced the number of years' experience required for municipal engineer. We went from 10 to 5.
I don't have any changes, me personally.
So no changes and move
cool.
forward the same as prior. Let's see, so we want to look at the Northfield drainage in new business?
Council President, this afternoon I had a Zoom meeting with the state. They were discussing the project to reconstruct Route 9 from Chapman to Absecon to Route 30. The issue came up, it's about 8.5 miles. We got 2-point-some miles in our city of Northfield. Two things came up. They discussed the issue with the drainage problem, so I'm contacting the project manager to see what she can do to help us move forward with the state so we can resolve that issue meanwhile, because that project is not going to happen until 2027, 2028, so there's a few more years before they start doing the reconstruction. The second thing they requested that they would need a resolution of support from this council before the end of the year. So she will send me a sample resolution, and then she'll send me the PowerPoint presentation so I can share it with the council members so they can look at what they're proposing. The reason they need it by the end of the year, because coming 1/1/2022, the state, they're changing their regulations. So all the work they have done have to be redone at that point. So they're pushing the issue that they would need a resolution of support from Summers Point, Linwood, Northfield, Pleasantville, and Absecon to support this project so they can move forward with it. So I'll bring that to council. If I receive it by the next meeting, I'll send it to Mary and Chris so they can draft something. But they would need a resolution before the end of the year. So, but it's a major project.
Yeah.
They're rebuilding the road. They're going to widen certain areas. They're going to acquire additional land because we have certain areas that is really narrow. So they're going to try to make it more safer for pedestrians, for motorists, give us a little bit bigger shoulders. So it's a major project, and it's going to be probably, when they build it, it will be probably a year project, a year process.
So
Yeah. So
it's
we're going to suffer through it, but they're going to fix all the drainage problems we have. Some of the issues we have with driveways, they're going to fix all those.
okay.
So I'll send the presentation when I receive it with the sample resolution.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
does the city have any input on turn lanes, like Route 9 and Mill Road?
We can bring to them what we would like. This is the second meeting we had. We are a stakeholder with them. So what they're doing now is they're coming up with the concept, the project, the ideas, but it's not designed yet. So
I
we
think
will
that
have
would be
an
one of
input.
the major things that they should design is turn lanes at Mill Road and New Road.
I can bring it up to them, you know, when we get the resolution of support, we'll send it to them with our recommendations. But the issue is the right-of-way. We don't have enough right-of-way to do
Well-
all these.
Well, take it though.
Yeah, well,
I mean, that's my opinion, you know, it's like a stagecoach road with the way that intersection's made. And at one time, we had the opportunity to widen it, and it's just a bottleneck from Egg Harbor Township to Northfield. I mean, that's my opinion, but,
that intersection is very difficult,
Yeah.
actually, especially with the school, with everything you
Yep.
have around.
You talking about off of Route 9, North to Mill?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
so,
forget, we have 2 easements there. Mary loves easements.
I do.
You have 2 easements there for the, so, I mean,
So-
that can easily be,
So-
changed, but they'd have to acquire right away.
so
you said
Councilman Clary,
also drainage is gonna be redone?
they're gonna fix drainage issues. They
How
have a lot
about
of-
the lines that the state has that run into Birch Grove, are they gonna upgrade them?
I'm not sure about that.
That'd be another one I'd want to look at,
Okay.
upgrading the size of the pipes going into Birch Grove from Route 9.
So what we can do, Councilman Perry, is when we send the resolution of support, we'll give them our list of items that we want them to look at.
Good.
So that will be, because we are considered as a stakeholder, we're their partners in this project.
Good, very good.
Okay, thank you.
How many systems do we have to tie into state systems?
We have Cedar Bridge, portion of it, not all of it, just a small portion. Northfield Ave,
And I know there's one at Banning too.
Banning that goes all the way down to the Birch Grove Park. That's a shared line, but they,
And that easement that Mr. Perry was talking about is right opposite the funeral home there on that Zion, just a little bit north of Zion.
North Zion, okay.
It runs, there's a ditch that runs all
Oh,
the
well,
way
yeah,
from.
behind
you know,
Fillmar in that area, Fillmar Circle.
It
Okay.
runs between two houses.
So
And Route 9 and Tilton also.
that's between them and the county. The county were at the meeting, and they were
Okay.
talking about readjusting some areas. And interestingly, we had some areas came on the historical registry, such as Rite Aid, Carluccio, the auto shop, you know. And I told those people, I said, these are new construction. I mean, Rite Aid was built 25 years ago. I don't think
Yeah.
it's historical yet, but, so, I mean, it was weird how some area, the church is part of a historical registry, because they think it's a real old church, but they're going to acquire some additional land, and they will be able to do that because it's not gonna affect the church itself.
Right.
So, it's a major project, but we can give them all our input, all our ideas, and they would work with us.
Good.
Thank you. Councilwoman Madden, did you have something you wanted to address in new business?
I did, in regarding the email, let me take that one. Regarding the email from, Mr. Joe, or Jude, sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce his
Joe.
name. Mr. Joe, and he had, some, rationale to keep, the truck within. And,
Oh,
I
okay.
just have some comments to make on that.
Yes.
His first rationale was it serves to have the vehicle available for rapid response. My thought is if the truck is, Mr. Joe's here, yes?
Yes.
I thought so.
Yeah, he's here.
May I ask where you work, sir?
I work at Atlantic here, Atlantic City.
In Atlantic City? So you don't work in Northfield, you live in Northfield but don't work in
Correct.
Northfield? So the response wouldn't be so rapid if the vehicle was with you while you were doing working hours, or if you took it somewhere. Do you use it just like as a personal vehicle?
No,
No, just, to work and back?
I don't even take it to work and back.
So it just sits in your driveway?
Yes.
Okay, well, then it could sit in his driveway.
Well, I mean, you're right. If I'm at work, that's your correct response, but there's a lot of times I'm not at work. And I do respond to
So-
fire calls and things like that.
But you have two people now, so like the first person to get to the truck would have access to it. So, you know, as I say, I think it should stay on site, on premises. The second thing you noted was the vehicle will not sit idle for long periods of time, as did the truck, and you mentioned something about dry rot and drain the battery. Well, I'm sorry to say, but that was a result of your neglect, if you let dry rot and the battery drain, that you don't.
It was before he got it.
And then the third point you had mentioned was to promote visibility to public that OEM is active and responsive. And my answer to that is that you should make routine rounds. I think the fire department makes rounds, police cars are making rounds all the time. If you make rounds, that would alleviate your first two concerns, because if you make rounds, you would be visible, the truck won't decay, and also, you know, you can maintain it better. Also, I think you should keep a log on when you make rounds, mileage, maintenance, gas usage, and with receipts of the mileage in gallons and seconds, so you have good records. So, like I say, Northfield's a small town, we don't live that far, neither of you live that far from this facility, and whoever gets here first would have the truck. And like I said, you can certainly, I think, on a routine basis, make rounds and keep it in good condition and, you know, take care of it. So those are my thoughts.
Mr. President, let me just, if I may just add, and I had a conversation with Mr. Drews with regards to the truck and with regards to, or the new vehicle that we purchased, and with regards to his email that he sent to me, which I forwarded to City Council. I will say that Councilwoman Madden has brought up some good valid points and some concerns, and also Mr. Drews has also put in some points there. It has been the policy to allow the vehicle to be taken home, so for response time to be within the time frame to deal with any certain emergency that may come up, or with pending weather conditions or catastrophes that would give them some time. I have no problems either way. I think everyone has given some valid points, and I would beg to get council's recommendation, and I will abide with them since you guys are buying the truck.
Well, one of the things that I would say is to jockey it back and forth. So, for example, if, when he's at home, how would he get both cars to his house? If you leave the car here, but when he's at home, then he would have it at his home for more rapid response.
Well, no.
Then when he goes to work, he'd have to come back, bring it here, and then get back to his home to get his car to go to work. So it just makes sense to have it available.
The policemen come with their cars and take the police car, correct? Well, this would be the same. You would
They
take
don't
your
respond
car,
when they're at home sleeping,
Tim,
if they get a call.
But you just drive here and you step in the
Where
truck
do you
and you
live?
drive home.
What street?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Tim lives at Jackson and Shore. If you have an SUV that looks like a police car sitting on Jackson and Shore, it kind of helps in the traffic flow, you know? It slows people down a little bit when you see that. I mean, honestly, I think we're micromanaging something that really doesn't need to, I mean, we're wasting a lot of time with this.
Yep.
Take the car home, for crying out loud. Does it really matter?
Well, it's not gonna be a car, it's gonna be an SUV,
Does it really matter?
right?
Yeah.
But don't we have something else better to do than worry about an SUV that's gonna sit on Jackson Avenue?
I don't have a problem with it
I don't
being,
have a
I don't have a problem with it
problem.
being
I
in
would
the
take the
neighborhood.
car
I think in the neighborhood's appropriate. Anyone else?
Use it.
Mr. President, I have something, as new business, I'm coming for that.
Yes.
Um,
Other new business?
Atlantic County reached out to the city, and they have an interest in purchasing a piece of property on Dolphin Avenue. It's 605 Dolphin Avenue, it's block 69, lot 1.02. It's located behind the county Public Works complex. It's in between the disabled veterans property and the back gate off of Dolphin Avenue. This particular lot is about 1 acre, and it is part of our COA plan. So if we consider this, we're gonna have to come up with some other parcel that's equal to this. So my recommendation is that we draft a letter and write to the county to see if they have any land that we could swap for this, that may be suitable.
Greg, is the land on the corner of Dolphin and Shore,
No,
would that be part of the
No.
COA program if we got that?
That's the
No.
Habitat one.
That would be the
That's a
Habitat,
different,
right?
that's a different one.
It would be
It's
totally
Harvey.
different.
Yeah,
Harvey
that's-
and
It wouldn't count as our
Harvey-
COA, okay.
Harvey and Dolphin is, we have a parcel that's part of it, and across the street, this is across the street, this on the county side.
Gotcha.
This
It's an
one's
irregular shaped
adjacent
lot.
to the county.
No, I know that. I'm
Currently.
just saying, if we got the other one, would that be a swap? Would it be a swap of?
That's already the plan, but we need the units that may come with that parcel.
Okay.
This
This is
is,
a whole acre.
this is additional.
It's an
units.
acre, so we need even more than that.
I think we were looking for four or five affordable units there,
Yeah,
and that's tough to replace.
yeah.
But I like your suggestion. If the county's got something to give it up,
I would say, yeah, if we can ask the
okay,
county,
let's trade.
and they have other land
So
in nearby that may fit in with that plan.
if they don't have any land, that they're interested in, swapping, then I say we can't move forward with it, because we can't meet our color plan without this lot.
Right.
So, and just want to get, your opinion on whether or not we should do that or not.
I think that's a good idea.
Approval as well.
I think that, yeah, that makes sense. It would help them out if they need that piece, and then, it would help us to maintain our power plant.
Okay.
Anyone, any other input? Okay. That concludes our new business. We'll now open the meeting to the public. The meeting is now open to the public for anyone from the public wishing to speak on any subject. We ask that you please state your name for the record and observe a 5-minute limit per speaker.
Hi, my name's Carol Mabucci. I live at 530 Woodford Drive. I just wanted to remind everybody what the question was, the ballot question was, as to cannabis. So do you approve amending the, do you approve amending the Constitution to legalize a controlled form of marijuana called cannabis? Only adults at least 21 years of age could use cannabis. State Commission, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Cannabis products, and explains what it is. Not anywhere in here can you get from this to selling in our town. I've been campaigning for the last 6 months. In Ward 1 and Ward 2, the majority of the people that I've spoken to are against this. So I just think, or I'm gonna recommend, that maybe take it to referendum and get a vote from the public, because I don't think you are getting a full picture of what the people here want. So, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Referendum would cost us quite a bit of money if we were to do something like that. I don't know if that's really something we want to do.
No?
Hi, my name is Joe Shiloh. I live at 2547 Cedar Bridge. I've lived here almost 20 years. When I heard about this through the radio, I was very upset about the cannabis question and retail selling of it. We moved from Seacon to Northfield because of the schools. We love this town. I have asked my friends, I'm a board member of my church, and none of us have heard about this situation coming up in the town. Frank, I used to live near you. I feel very strongly about this. I actually walked away from a Bible study. I have my pastor teaching it. Feel where we do not need to go down this path. It has nothing to do with prohibition. And by the way, I appreciate all the work you guys do. It's a hard job that we have to do. We have to make decisions. I understand that. But as a businessman, I don't think we're gonna generate the income that we think we're gonna get from this. If you take, on average, let's say one retail operation does $500,000. At 2%, it's $10,000. We pay that in taxes, just one house, on average. This is not the way to go. We want to be the town that people come to, the town that people are drawn to. This is not the kind of thing we need to do. And I really suggest that you get out on the street, as Greg did, and other people have, and talk to the people, because this is not what people want. I mean, I grew up in Atlantic City. Trust me, drugs and alcohol, and all these things lead to onward spiral of things. And we moved out because of that, okay? I just felt very strongly about this, that I had to be here at this meeting. It bothered me for a day or two. I had to think about it. Nothing but this. Is it legal? Yes. Does it right? No. The majority of the people have voted for this in the state. I understand that, and we have to accept that. But to make it more accessible, we know that they're gonna sell it through other avenues. We understand that, and it's gonna get delivered. I understand that too. But just as you know with alcohol and recreational drugs, people have it laying around their house, their kids are gonna pick it up. The kids are already now riding their bikes late at night in the city, and we're gonna let them have access through their parents' use of these drugs. And by the way, years ago, when I used to work in food safety, a lot of the labeling that's on these CBD products are not exactly what's being manufactured. The percentages are not mandated by the federal government, so they don't have controls on it yet. So let's say they buy a chewy and eat a bunch of them and get super high, run in front of a car, and these poor police officers have their hands tied by the state. And we're gonna make this something that's gonna be more readily available? Does that make any sense? And I just wanted to bring that up, and I feel very strong with that. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Mr. Shivo.
Thank you, sir, and you've made some good points.
Anyone else from the public?
Tom Boyd, 197 Northfield Avenue. First of all, I'd like to extend my appreciation to Councilman Perry for all his many years of service to this town. If you think about it, close to 30 years. A lot of people don't spend that much time in a career. And he did it all while, raising a family and running a business. And I don't think we've heard the last one.
I'm certain.
Thanks, Tom.
I would bet on it.
Thanks.
And Councilwoman Madden, thank you for your service, and congratulations to Greg and Brian on your elections. Secondly, maybe I missed something on the item dealing with the Block 66, was it, Lot 11? Yeah, with Habitat for Humanity.
Yes.
Having spent any number, I spent close to 10 years in the past volunteering with Habitat on projects in Atlantic City, Pleasantville, Egg Harbor Township, Hamilton Township, Galloway Township, but never here in Northfield. I don't know, can you divulge any further information on that?
Certainly. And there's a lot there that we had designated as part of another lot that we had designated as affordable housing, the COA plan.
Okay, that's what was discussed.
This is another one. There's two of them. There's multiple ones. The city has to have a certain percentage of affordable housing. This lot, someone was interested in purchasing from the city, and we let them know that it was part of the our COA plan. And we also reached out to Habitat for Humanity to see if they were interested as well. And there's another lot in town, so, and we're hoping that we can partner with them and again, help them do something in Northfield, which would be great, and it also fills some of our requirements for our affordable housing.
Okay, and lastly, I think the gentleman from Cedar Bridge pretty much said it all. I can start by saying I didn't vote for the referendum to approve the sale or cultivation of cannabis in the state. And I'm convinced, I understand the need to take advantage to gain revenue where we can. Okay, you can't argue with that. But I challenge this council, put your collective heads together, and I'm sure you can find more appropriate means of generating revenue for this city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Anyone on Zoom?
No.
Oh, you snuck up.
My business is at 801 Tilton Road. I wanted to address the signs. I play devil's advocate. I have retail stores in many different townships. Maybe if you're going to allow grand opening for 90 days, you also allow going out of business for 90 days. And in other townships, they do a 30-day year-end clearance or anniversary.
Okay.
Just so that people do have opportunities, but it doesn't get crazy. And I want to address what we call not in my backyard proposal, which is the cons against cannabis. So the reality is, it is in your backyard, and it's how you handle it, which is going to be the difference. And I think that these regulations are reasonable. I also think you're not going too far, too many, too little for competition purposes, but your zoning also is where it's highly visible. And unfortunately, you are correct about CBD products. CBD products are regulated by the FDA, and there are standard deviations, so those products are not always labeled properly. Cannabis is. It goes under much more stricter standards. So I just want, I don't want you to confuse the two. The state has imposed almost extreme measures, but those extreme measures protect our children. And that way you know what you are getting. They protect the consumer, I should say, and the medical patient. And that's all.
Excuse
Thank
me,
you.
may I ask you, are you a resident of Northfield or just a business owner?
No, I'm not a resident of Northfield. I grew up in Brigantine. I worked at the Brigantine Castle. I've been in this area longer than I want to admit. But I'm the next neighboring town over,
Thank you,
Margate.
thank you,
I've been here for 10 years in Northfield. This is my backyard.
thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to address that it's not just that you're going to have to hire X number of people from your township or the next neighboring one. You're hiring contractors. You're hiring printers. You are, in my store, if I have a staff meeting, I hire from a local business, not a chain business. Even though chains are good, you know, but there is something to be said for these businesses. They do support local other businesses. So there's a little bit of a chain reaction. And the not in my backyard mentality, it is in your backyard. It's how you handle it.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Anyone in Zoom? Nope. At this time, we will close the public session. I ask everyone to please refer to your agendas. Meeting minutes. Councilman Notaro, Councilwoman Madden. Resolutions by consent agenda 187 to 192. Councilwoman Madden, Councilman Perry. And Resolution 192 is for an executive session, and then we have two resolutions, 193, 194. That'll be Councilman Deweese, Councilman Utz. Payment of bills, Councilman Perry, Councilman Smith. And meeting notices, Councilman Smith.
Council President, which ones am I doing again?
193 and 194 pending our outcome of the executive session.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Old broke, is hitting so hard. Yeah.
Good evening. This is the regular meeting of Northfield City Council, November 9th of 2021. This meeting was properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, in the Press of Atlantic City on January 9th of this year. As you may know, in late May, Governor Murphy issued Executive Order 242 related to COVID-19, and which eased restrictions on face coverings in indoor public spaces under certain conditions. This order permits employers to impose stricter requirements regarding face coverings in indoor settings, which in the best interests of our employees and visitors, the City of Northfield opted to do in May and continues to do today. Based on CDC guidelines, the city continues to require face coverings and social distancing in our indoor public spaces, and visitors are made aware of this decision with signs at the entrances to the building. Due to these requirements, there are limited seats for in-person attendance by members of the public this evening. This meeting is also being presented simultaneously as a remote public meeting live streamed using Zoom conferencing service and in accordance with the governor's executive orders and the Open Public Meetings Act. Zoom meeting participants can dial in by telephone and listen to the proceedings, or they can access the meeting using a web browser and be able to view and listen. Instructions on how members of the public could reserve one of the limited seats, as well as how they can access Zoom, have been made available on the municipal website and were published in the Press of Atlantic City. The full text of the public meeting notice has been posted at the entrance to the municipal building and includes Zoom instructions, information on where to find the meeting agenda and relevant documents, as well as instructions on how members of the public could submit comments in advance of tonight's meeting. For those participating via Zoom, all participants will be muted upon entry to the meeting. Web browser participants will not be able to share their screens or see the camera view of anyone other than the host, which is the city of Northfield. Zoom participants wishing to exercise their right to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting should wait until the specific announcement is made to open the public comment period. At this time, one by one, any telephone users will be asked to identify themselves and will be unmuted to permit commentary. For web browser participants, comments or questions may be submitted via the chat function, but will not be acknowledged outside of the designated public comment portion of the meeting. Chat users must also provide his or her name and address for the record in order to be heard. Any written comments submitted in advance would be read aloud and addressed during the public comment portion of the meeting, and for this evening's meeting, there were none. May I have a flag salute led by Mayor Chow, please?
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, let us remember and keep in our prayers those serving in our nation's armed forces, especially our troops away from home. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Deweese?
Here.
Mrs. Madden? Mr. Notaro?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Utz?
Here.
Mr. Palestina?
Here.
Mr. Chow?
Here.
Mr. President?
Thank you. Approval of the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve and dispense with the reading of the minutes of October 26, 2021. They've been distributed to council and are on file in the clerk's office.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. Mayor's report.
Thank you, Council President. I, too, would like to echo my congratulations to the elected city officials and the school board members, and also thank all the candidates who have run for the various different positions. As we all know, it is a thankless job, and one thing I learned when I first took my position as city council member is that as much as we would like to please everyone, that is an impossible task. There will always be someone that we will not be able to please. So it's not a great feeling, but it is certainly a joy. I know all of us that serve the public as a civic duty, and it's one of those things where, you know, I first learned that if you want to get something done, don't complain, get involved. And that's what all of you reflect here on City Council. So thank you all very much for your duties and responsibilities. And Frank, I'll have something to say about your years of experience and what you've done for City Council at our final meeting next month. But special thank you to you for the many years that you have served.
Thanks, Mayor.
My second item, I'm happy to report that since Northfield has decided to go along with the county administrative court system, that I have been put back on the government's committee, the budget committee, and tomorrow we will have a Zoom meeting, and I know that Mr. Facenda had brought up some concerns regarding salaries. You know, I will present that. You know, I don't know where we're at. This will be the first meeting for the budget, but that's certainly my concern. You know, I don't want this to get outlandish. You know, I don't know what the personnel committee, what they negotiated, but, you know, we'll soon find out.
Yeah, I just got something in the mail the other day that they're going back out to bid for the prosecutors and public defenders,
Okay.
based upon the fact that they quote-unquote, did not get satisfactory responses to the first one.
I see, okay. And if, by tomorrow, if any of you have any questions you would like me to pose on behalf of the city, please email me. My meeting tomorrow, I think, is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay?
One thing is you had forwarded us that, if there's the kiosk, if we.
Do you want to have a kiosk here?
Well, the question is, do you know what that entails, or?
Well, from my discussion with Hamilton Township, it does require someone there in case there is any IT problems, but also answering any questions that anyone comes to their building to utilize the kiosk. So that would require somebody monitored and
okay.
in that respect there.
They wouldn't do that, they would just drop off the kiosk and the keys and.
No, no, no,
Here you
no,
go?
no, from
Okay.
my understanding. So
Okay,
I didn't
Yeah.
get anyone in, who was in affirmative, so I would assume that we don't want to have the kiosks here.
yeah, I wasn't sure what it entailed, but if it didn't,
Okay.
yeah, well, we don't have the wherewithal to.
And I'll get more information on that proposal. I mean,
Okay.
that's what I heard from preliminary from Hamilton Township when I inquired about that. Moving along, it's been quite a few, well, over a year and a half with the bus shelter proposal that I submitted to New Jersey Transit at Oak Avenue, at Oak Crest and Shore Road. So we're moving along. There's been some bureaucracy problems and red tape, but hopefully that will come to fruition. But I just wanted to get back on that. That's been well over a year standing there. Mask requirement. Councilman Utz brought up one point from one resident, and it's funny because I had one resident to come to me and ask, what are we going to do? I mean, there's a lot of other municipal buildings and public places and restaurants and so forth which don't require mask. And I will just paraphrase this, that when Governor Murphy announced that all people in New Jersey, regardless of vaccination status, are, quote, strongly recommended, end quote, to wear masks indoors in setting where there is an increased risk, but stop short of mandating face coverings again. I, as a responsible agent here at City Hall, have, with the consultant of our city clerk, we decided to mandate that everyone that enters this building wear masks. I will ask City Council for your opinion, and I will certainly abide by your opinion because I feel it's a democratic process. So, Council President, at some point in time, I'll ask you to entertain that question before City Council. All right?
Thank you. Do you want to do it now?
I don't care. That's up to City President. Do you want to do that?
Well, if everybody has reviewed the executive order and can speak to it, then, but, yeah, other than the fact that none of us want them. That's the only thing we have to go on. I would say you take a look at that executive order, see what we, although other towns are doing it, let's make sure we're in compliance. We don't typically have a large crowd here. I don't know how many times we would go over, but we certainly don't want to.
I think the social distances and limiting the number of people in here is great. I think that's a great idea. But the mask is another issue that some
Just
people.
socially distance without masks. So
Mhm.
we'll have, take a look at that, order, and we'll pull it, we'll talk about it at the next meeting.
Okay,
Sounds good?
thank you. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the code enforcement position. I'll just speak very briefly that this is some of the positions in both licensed as well as unlicensed positions in the building department has been a thorn in city councils since I was on city council over 30-some years. It is the problem that we just either can't find properly licensed individuals or no one's really interested. Tonight, I'll be making a proposal before City Council to discuss it, and hopefully you'll support my proposal, and we'll move forward on that. And my last thing that I would like to present before City Council, and Mr. President, if I may read this proclamation into the record. Whereas the Americans across the country will be celebrating Veterans Day on Thursday, November 11th of 2021, this annual federal holiday is set aside as a time for honoring all veterans who serve in the United States Armed Forces. And whereas the Veterans Day is observed on November 11th in commemoration of the anniversary of the signing of the armistice that ended World War I, hostilities officially ended in 1918 at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And whereas we are humbled by the sacrifices rendered by our service members and their families out of the deepest love of our country, and whereas on Veterans Day, we honor all Americans who have served in the armed forces of Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard, both in times of war and peace. And whereas with respect and recognition for the contributions our servicemen and women who have made to the cause of peace and freedom around the world, I ask that all citizens of the city of Northfield, New Jersey, County of Atlantic, pay tribute to all of our veterans, both living and deceased. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Erlen Chow, Mayor of the city of Northfield, New Jersey, County of Atlantic, do hereby encourage all citizens to recognize the valor and sacrifices of our veterans as we celebrate this Veterans Day on November 11th, 2021. And that is the proclamation that I would issue to all. Thank you very much, Mr. President. That is the end of my report.
Thank you, Mayor.
Council President?
Yes.
Question. Mayor, the bus shelter you're talking about, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. The bus shelter you're talking about, is that Shore Road, No Crest?
Yes.
Is that going to require any right-of-way or anything? similar
Yes,
to
that, Mary,
Because
Shannon was handled,
that's
but
a
that's,
county road, so,
yes, that has been coordinated with the county and with the New Jersey Transit and with the permit processes and the right-of-way that we have to obtain.
okay. Because if that's going to encroach on private property, we have to deal with the resident as well. If that's going to be outside of the sidewalk in somebody's property, if that's private residence, then. Okay.
Question for the mayor, is there any, can we get any, ceremony on Veterans Day at the Veterans Park?
No, we're not having one, and I will tell you this. I was waiting to hear from both Mainland Regional High School and Northfield Community School. In the past, I did not want to conflict with their program. Mainland had a breakfast in the morning that ended up around 11 o'clock or so, and with the Northfield Community School, they always invited veterans and individuals to come in and speak to the students. So I didn't want to conflict with their program, and that's the reason why in the past years, I have not done that.
Okay, just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Perry, yes.
I would like to piggyback on the mayor's proclamation and also recognize Mark Doherty, the commander of 295 Post, who's present here tonight, and thank him for his service to our community. And a job well done, keeping it going. It's not hard. We're looking for new members, and it would be nice to see it still, flourish. And with the past years and the wall of honor that they have in there with the residents that have passed is really magnificent, and a lot of great people have passed through there. And I can't say enough for him and his wife's activity to keep it going to this point, Mark. And happy Veterans Day, Mark.
Yes, and may I also add, Mary, do you know what the status is on, we were naming a street or a section, Veterans Way, I believe it was called?
Purple Heart Way?
Purple Heart Way. We had to get through the county, was it?
Dave, you want to answer that?
Oh, Dave, I'm sorry.
We need county approval to put them on, I don't think we need county approval to put them on our street. Do we?
Where are you putting them? Are you putting them on Zion, or are you
We
putting
would
them on
put
Oak?
Mill and Zion.
Oh,
On those-
I don't know.
On those two street sides.
Do we need county approval for that, Greg?
Yeah,
We
because it's our
actually had a
street sign.
letter with, of approval.
The only thing that you had talked about is maybe you're gonna reach out to the county and see if they'll give signs similar to what they did for the Veterans Park around,
Around town.
around the county, directing people to Purple Heart Way.
Yes, exactly.
I think to put, you know, a sign on top of the existing street sign, there are street signs, not the county's.
Yeah, there are street signs, so
Correct.
we can do that.
But, you know, maybe just as, you know, good faith, maybe just want to just drop a letter to them stating you're gonna do that. Just-
I believe we did.
And don't we want to do some type of formal dedication, so
Formal dedication.
working around that?
Sometime in the
So-
spring.
Yeah.
We'll need to set a date for that. And then also, Shannon had a great idea about Purple Heart Path for inside the pathway. So that would be in addition to the two.
The Parks can, yeah, the
the
Parks
street
Committee can
signs.
take care of that once the,
Mhm. So it'd be nice to get that going, for sure.
Council President, I'm sorry,
Yes.
there's one other thing. I wanted to thank everyone, our police department, our city workers, Councilman Nuts especially. Trunk or treat, it was a success, and I can tell you that everyone loved having it in the park at the campgrounds. There was plenty of space, electricity, it was very well attended. I thought it was a great place to have it, and we had a great number of kids coming, and thank you, everyone, for a wonderful job that you all did in helping to make this a very successful event, which I know we're gonna have again next year. And I know, Councilman Nuts, I'm gonna have to say this, your display is always the tops. I love it.
Well, thank you, Mayor, but I want to apologize for all the political signs. I'd like to see much less of that next time.
we'll have to move the date.
Maybe.
Mr. President, I would like to, on the 11th hour, be out at the Veterans Park just to
Yes.
lower and raise the flag
I'll
on
be there with you.
behalf of the community.
I'll absolutely be there with you.
What
sir.
time did you want, 11th hour?
The 11th hour.
At 11 o'clock, okay.
Yep.
Let's do that. That would be very nice.
Thank you for
Mr.
that.
Perry, would you like me to put that on our website and social media platforms?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's on Thursday morning.
Yes, at 11.
Engineers report.
Thank you, Council President. I have only a couple of things to report. As you recall, back in July, I prepared an application on behalf of the city to the state, NJDOT, for the reconstruction of Oak. We received $285,000 in grant money for that project. So that was awarded to us back October 28th. We received the letter that they lessened the amount. Apparently, it's across the board. So we got $285,000 for that project. That should put the project in line. The second thing,
What section is that gonna be?
from Mill to Linwood,
Okay.
it's reconstruction of the entire street.
It's not gonna widen it or anything, or,
No, we might have
Just-
to add some curbing, some sidewalks, and just fix handicap ramps. We have to comply with the ADA requirements, but
Okay.
that would be it, and reconstruct the road. That'd be the limit of the project.
okay.
The other thing is, we had a pre-construction meeting today with the contractor for Merritt Drive and portion of Ridgewood. We have some things we need to work on, especially the existing drainage facilities. Public Works Director brought up that some pipe under the road might be corrugated metal pipe, which really they're substandard now, and they might collapse. So he's gonna do some investigation. The department will investigate the type of pipes, and if we have to change it, this is the time to replace it with concrete pipes. So there's some few things might be moving with that project, but we're gonna move forward with the project to widen the road, fix the drainage issues, and get it paved. But the paving won't happen until until the spring. We had discussion with the police department because we're working across Wabash on Merritt. And the thought was, let the contractor plan on paving that section during spring break for the school. So we don't have a lot of kids going, because we have to close the bike path while we're working. And we have a lot of kids that go across to the school. So tentatively, I sent a note to the contractor to schedule the paving to be during spring break. So that's when the project will be complete. That's all that I have.
Thank you. Any questions for the engineer?
Yes, Mr. President, I received some communication from the clerk about Haddon Avenue and the driveway apron and some of the concrete work there. It does need to be addressed. There is some issues with it, and not being a professional in that area, the apron and some of the curbing that the resident has complained about, I would recommend that the engineer take another look at it.
All right. I'll stop by Mr. Ferry and we'll
On Haddon
take a
Avenue?
look at
Okay.
it. Yeah. All right.
Anyone else? No? Okay, we'll move on to the public session. The meeting is now open to the public. For anyone to speak on any subject, please state your name and address for the record and observe a 5-minute limit per speaker. Anyone on Zoom?
No, let's just give it a moment, because sometimes there's a delay.
Yes.
No.
No one on Zoom? Okay. Seeing no one wishing to speak, the public session is now closed. Resolutions. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and having been reviewed by council will be enacted by one motion. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and if so removed, will be treated as a separate matter. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certificate of availability of funds. The executive session of council will be held at the end of the meeting, and we will come back in public session to make a comment for the record after the executive session has concluded. Any vote made on subjects discussed will be made in public. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to vote for consent agenda on resolution 187/2021 to 192/2021.
Second motion.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
All in favor of voting by consent agenda on resolutions 187 through 192?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda on resolutions 187/2021 to 192/2021.
Second motion.
Now roll call.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Payment of bills?
Make the necessary motion for the payment of bills of $2,748,000, $826.60.
Second?
Any questions, comments? Roll call.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for payment of bills.
Meeting notices.
The next city council meeting will be November 23rd with a 6 PM work session and regular session to follow immediately after.
Do I have a motion to adjourn to the executive sessions?
Motion to
Not just
adjourn?
yet.
Not just yet.
Oh.
Mary will read something.
Not just yet. Resolution 192 of 2021 was just adopted as part of the consent agenda. This is a resolution providing for an executive session not open to the public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:12B, in this case 8, regarding personnel matters. For those participating via Zoom, once the executive session does start, I will be pausing the audio and video recording. Council will remain in council chambers. The members of the public who are here participating this evening will be asked to excuse themselves for the duration of the closed session. Once the closed session concludes, as the council president stated, the audio will be turned back on, the video will resume, the doors will be open, the public will be welcomed back in, and a statement will be made for the record. We are required, however, to set forth as much information as possible for the public as to the subject matter to be discussed, as well as provide for them the amount of time that they can expect to elapse before the non-public minutes can be disclosed. And before the doors close and all of that, I'm going to defer to the solicitor for a brief comment.
Thank you. As authorized by Resolution 192, the council for the city of Northfield will enter into an executive session not open to the general public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Matter to be discussed are personnel matters, specifically the change in employment status of Jonathan Skull from part-time SLEO to a full-time SLEO in accordance with certain recommendations of the chief of police and Mayor Chow. Council will keep minutes of the executive session as required by law, which will be approved by the council and made publicly available when required and permitted by law. It's my understanding that the employee has been noticed through the Rice notice, and at this time it's unknown as to when the minutes of this session will be available. We will stay in council chambers, and official action may be taken following the executive session.
Okay, so if the,
Council President,
Doherty,
do
Mrs.
you wish to have the
Dickey,
chief,
Yes.
police here?
Chief will be
Chief,
staying,
you'll remain,
yes.
please.
Yes.
No, this is our officer, Skull, John Skull, and as I said, he's a resident of Northfield, went to local schools, and
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council, for giving me this opportunity. As you know or may not know, I do live at 8 Danny Drive in Northfield and Sutton Woods. Grew up here in Northfield next to Venturas and then moved to Sutton Woods, but as I progressed throughout the police career, I absolutely love it. I have good guidance at home. We have a great department. I'd like to thank Chief for the opportunity here as well. So thank you all, and I'm looking forward to, moving right along with you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Officer Jonathan Skull.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion
Wait,
on?
wait. Chris has to make a
Chris has to
statement.
read something.
He's going to make a statement for the record. For the record. Go ahead, Chris.
Council has concluded its executive session not open to the general public in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act as authorized by Resolution 192, 2021. Matters discussed were the change in employment status of Jonathan Skull from a part-time law enforcement officer to a Class 2 law enforcement officer to a full-time special law enforcement officer with certain code enforcement duties. Minutes were kept. They will be available for public inspection once permitted by law. Official action may be taken in a moment.
Thank you.
And you can do them together if you want or individually, doesn't matter.
Okay. So we can do a motion for a consent agenda on resolutions 193 and 194.
I'd like to make the motion to adopt resolutions 193, 2021, 194, 21.
Second?
By consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a motion for the consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda for 193, 2021, and 194, 2021.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden? Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of the consent agenda.
And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Barbara.